Hello all, I hope you're doing well today. Sorry it took me a while to get this video out. I've had a busy weekend with the family as well as a nice call with the fellas on the Substack yesterday. Good to connect with some of you in person. But anyway, this video really follows on from the last video, which was about Oasis and their return and how it really marks their move into total nostalgia. You know, it's a time that we can look back to better times through their music and try and make sense of ourselves in what is a very dark and confusing time in Britain and the wider Western world. But this video is going to look not so much to the past and what's been, but more to the future and what's coming, because I think things are really moving now in a big way. Nobody seriously thinks that Britain, and by extension the Western world, is in a good way. Now, I started thinking about this topic when I saw this tweet from Adam Wren, which Rupert Lowe replied to. Wren states, the Lowe Splinter Group and Hezbollah, that's obviously, Jeremy Corbyn's new movement, it's a play on Hezbollah obviously, launching on the same week. We're starting to see hints of what the politics of the 2030s will look like. The centre ground will evaporate with the boomers. Very good point. You know, this whole idea of the post-boomer world, the post-boomer consensus is going to move us away from the core liberal ideas that keep us psychologically framed in the neoliberal mindset. I've spoken a lot about that on the channel. I don't think I have to dive too much further into that, but suffice to say, it really is the end of the post-World War II myth. Now, Lowe, in response to this, seemingly tongue-in-cheek, states, how do you know we won't merge with Corbyn? And I know this is a joke and so on, but when you really think about it, would it really be insane for what's often called the populist right to merge with elements of the populist left? Now, just hear me out on this, because I know it seems a bit insane. Corbyn is the absolute emblematic symbol of wokeness in many ways. Magic grandpa, the spiritual grandfather of Glastonbury. I get it. How on earth could you align with him in any way? Now, I'm not saying there's going to be an alignment with Corbyn in the future, but something behind Corbyn I think there could be. First of all, Corbyn is certainly part of wokeism, which properly understood is just a brain disease. It's a rogue ideology that comes in when you have no foundations of your own. You get kidnapped by these sort of alien, parasitical, poisonous ideologies that ruin your culture and your own life from the inside. But we must remember that Corbyn himself is old. He's in his 70s, he's going to pass on soon, and he represents politics, which too is part of the post-World War II liberal consensus. Yeah, he's on the leftist side of it, but he still represents that worldview, broadly speaking. And Corbyn's an interesting case study because if you look at the two major zeitgeists of his lifetime, starting in the 80s perhaps, the big argument was economic. Thatcher and the free markets on the right, socialism and Arthur Scargill on the left. Clear Corbyn was on the left there. But that argument really went away with Blair. The left-right split stopped being about economics and became more about culture. And that's where, I guess you could say, proto-wokeism came in, or liberalism versus more conservatism. And Corbyn, again, very much on the sort of the left-wing side of these things. However, it's my contention that these zeitgeists are now effectively over, and a new zeitgeist is being born. And Corbyn and the rest of the boomer liberals and the neoliberals aren't going to be here for that. This new zeitgeist, in my view, is all going to be rooted around identity. And I think we're seeing the shoots of this all over the place now. A case in point, this is Nick Dixon. I think he's on GB News. More synonymous with the sort of new right, if I can call it that, who aren't so fussed about free markets and immense loyalty and backing of Israel, but instead are more concerned about their own homelands. What on earth is happening here? And he is representative of many views. I saw on X recently where Matt Goodwin, who is a kind of classic neocon figure now, was speaking with the leftist Aaron Bastani over the issue of Israel. And many were agreeing with Bastani, who are on the right. Now, this is very telling because, again, it shows that there's this move away from the classic, quote, right-wing concerns and towards something new, which is more rooted in our own identity, our own concerns. And this is where I can personally see the beginnings of a union, or perhaps even a reunion, of the loyal, patriotic, indigenous right with more of a socialist indigenous left. And remember, there is heritage here, because as I'm sure many of you know, the Liverpool Dockers, who are known for being ground in socialism, strong Irish identity, They marched for Enoch after his, quote, rivers of blood speech. So it goes to show that union can be made, and it can be strong. And this brings me to a dimension regarding the neoliberal globalists, in that they've never understood, or maybe they have understood, but they've manipulated the Western people, it's very malevolent really, around ideas of identity. Nothing is stronger than one's identity, their loyalty to homeland, tradition, their people, their understanding of God and everything that comes with that and so on. These things run very, very deep. Now, neoliberal modernity has really gone for that. It said if you hold to any of that, you're somehow evil, you're twisted, you're disgusting. However, when it comes to different people from different parts of the world, exhibiting the same dimensions within themselves, they say, oh, how wonderful. Let's celebrate, the Pakistani Muslims' love of Pakistan and their Islamic faith and tradition. Isn't it beautiful and enriching? But hey, you over there, you stupid white Western Christian, how dare you? Have an in-group preference, you sick, twisted bigot. This has been a really bad move, and we've suffered with this for decades. I've tried to be very clear on this channel. Loving homeland, loving your tradition, loving your people is natural, normal, and healthy. And it does not mean, as the endless liberal brainwashing implies, that you hate other groups. I mean, for instance, as I've said many times, I have an interest in my personal life in comparative mythology. I like reading about Sufism, Idrisa, way of the Sufi. I'm interested in Buddhism. I'm interested in Hinduism and their understandings of things and seeing the cross-references between traditions. I wish them well. I like their traditions. I like them as people most of the time. But I value my own tradition. I want it to stay alive and thrive. And I know some of you may say, yeah, but how on earth can we do that? I mean, every institution is against us, the church, the government, the education system, everything, the media. And I get what you're saying. But I do believe beneath all of this, there is a very, very strong, rooted sense of identity. And these institutions that have become corrupted, that think, the naive people that lead them, that think they're creating a better world, but are really just destroying harmony, order, and stability, they will pass on. And not to mention, the real thing is the system that is empowering it all, the globalist neoliberal system, is starting to shake and cracks are starting to be shown. So this is going to open a space for something much more earthy and deep to come through. And if the institutions can be lost, they can be won back. Not to mention, many of the subversives in the country are so toxic and have this odiousness about them, which is just unavoidable and in many ways are doing our job for us. This is Yasmin Alibi Brown.
But I hope you never get power, Ben. I hope you never, in your lifetime, being the kind of unsympathetic, ungenerous soul that you are, I hope you never get power. I've never been this angry on this show.
Yasmin.
The way you talk about human beings is atrocious.
The nation state of the United Kingdom itself faces an existential threat as a result of the policies being pursued by government.
Now, I'm not going to subject you to any more of that, as I'm sure many of you, like me, find this woman really unbearable. I'm not sure what it is about her, but maybe it's that she looks a bit like a grandma, but she has this really toxic energy inside. I can't quite put my finger on it. Another thing that's quite annoying about her is, who is she to come here and tell us who we are and what isn't a threat, and yell at people and talk down to them? I find the whole thing, completely odious and detestable personally. But the reason I'm showing this clip is because most people can just click off the TV or the radio or YouTube or whatever else it is and just ignore people like this. But increasingly we are ruled by people like this. I mean, look at the Labour Party front bench. All these angry, screaming feminist women led by the robotic Keir Starmer. These people rule us now. And more people, left, centre and right, are going to be waking up to this and thinking, this is not Britain. This is not home. I don't want to be ruled and lectured at by people like this. Yeah, the silver lining to all of this is that the left is increasingly lost. I mean, look, Keir Starmer's government isn't working. Blairism can't go on forever. And even Jeremy Corbyn has started a new party, which is basically aimed at Muslims, which is fulfilling everything us on the right have predicted for a long time. Things are going to balkanise and people are going to start voting for their own ethno-cultural religious interest. And isn't it ironic that the naive liberal boomers like Corbyn, who are all about unity and solidarity, are actually the ones that are leading the process of balkanisation in the country? It's not being led by the right, it's being led by the left, because they're creating basically what are Muslim parties. Their core issues will be Gaza and so on. And Corbyn will pass on, thinking he's run his race, creating a better world of anti-racism and so on, whereas in reality he's creating huge divisions, and the world he's leaving is exactly the opposite. Another lefty lovey is Steve Coogan. He was on the BBC the other day. I won't play the clip in full, but he's talking a lot about how reform are succeeding simply because the Labour government isn't working for working class people. Now, again, that is true, but not for the reasons he thinks it is. If you improve the economy and just, talk about multiculturalism all the more, that's not going to improve things. My point here is that the liberal elites don't understand what's going on in the country anymore. So while times are quite rough at the moment and times are hard, beneath the surface I think there are many reasons for positivity. The liberal worldview is being destroyed bit by bit. Many of these people, Corbyn and Coogan and everyone in between, live basically in a fantasy world of their liberal ideology where, of course, they're always painted as the heroic anti-racist who's beyond all these silly ideas of identity and tradition. Yet in reality, the rest of the world doesn't think like that, and even deep down, the British and European people don't think like that. Now this brings me to a tweet by John McTiernan I covered a couple of videos ago. He was a political secretary for Tony Blair, and he tweeted, "The concept of ethnic English is truly evil." And this, of course, is classic Blairism. This is how they think about the world. And in 1997, that was the ethical way to think. We're not lost in any of this stupid identity stuff. We're past that. We're beyond that. We're more enlightened than the knuckle-dragging, mouth-breathing bigots. However, it's so funny to watch the response to this because 30 years later, times have changed, John. You are now the immoral one. The English people exist and you will not erase us. You wouldn't do this to any other ethnic group. This is, of course, why he deleted this tweet, because he realised the backlash was huge. The English people, like the rest of the Europeans, are indigenous and we have a right to exist. We will not be erased by your neoliberal globalist system, which isn't rooted in compassion and kindness, but quite a strong sense of malevolence now. And this brings me to the key point. Through the neoliberal Blairite lens, what are we supposed to do as the indigenous British people? Just think, oh well, we don't really exist, but everyone else coming here does, and we're supposed to celebrate their cultures and identities, but not our own. It's complete madness as we become a smaller and smaller percentage of our own homeland. And back to this fella I referenced at the beginning, Adam Wren. I don't quite know what Adam does. I think he's some sort of right-wing commentator. Sorry, Adam, if you ever watch this video. He's well worth a follow on Twitter. If someone does know his exact role, do let me know in the comments. But he makes another excellent point here. He's showing the decline in British births, native British births. It's 50% now of the country. And he's making an excellent point about, look, integration, to the extent that it even happens, takes hundreds of years. We can think about that with, the Huguenots, the Normans and so on. But now, with 50% of births being British, what can people integrate into anyway? Especially when the mainstream culture is all this nonsensical Blairism about the British not existing. So the country is now in a complete mess. Its heart and soul have been ripped out by neoliberal globalism, and Keir Starmer is the only figure left trying to bring it all together into some sort of eternal Blairism, but then he moves back away from that, back to the left, and then changes his mind again. He doesn't know if he's coming or going, while he's releasing videos looking impressive with all of the Americanizational flavour of flags behind him and looking strong and grand, saying that our best days are ahead of us. I mean, is anybody actually buying that? That if we stay on the same track, things are going to improve? You'd have to be seriously mentally unwell to buy that at this point. And as I often say on this channel, to understand what's really going on in Britain, we have to go beyond our own borders. We have to break free of the liberal programming and see that what's happening is actually epochal. Liberalism is starting to come to an end. It's had its day. It's led to the great wealth and the social freedoms, but now it's undermining the very fabric of the countries it was born in. It's destroying the very people that gave birth to it. Now, we've already seen how elements of the indigenous left and the indigenous right can join forces when it comes to the state of the nation. We've seen that with the Red Wall even going Tory, but more importantly in how they'll vote for reform. The real question, though, is can Reform hold it together? They don't seem to be able to hold many MPs together at the moment, not to mention Farage is a Thatcherite deep down, which isn't the way forward in my view, and he's playing more and more to the Liberal centre, indicating he thinks that liberalism is going to hold, and that's the best way for the country. Now, whether Farage just wants power or is a true believer in liberalism, just a right-wing one, is up to you to decide. But in my view, he's got it wrong that liberalism is going to last. The future is going to be identity. We're going to have to understand who we are from the foundations once more. It's the only way to see us through the mess of modernity. And as much as the liberals and the neoliberals and the normies and the London lovies tell you that it's somehow evil to care about your own nation, your own people, your own tradition, more and more people are realising that's completely untrue. It's a beautiful thing, it's soul nourishing, and it's necessary not only for us to survive, but to thrive in the future as well. As always, these are my thoughts. Do let me know what you think down below. If you are interested in tradition and spiritual and personal transformation, do check out my sister channel, The Sacred Way, down in the description. Other than that, do subscribe to this channel if you're new, and enjoy the rest of your day.